The wind screamed through the Appalachian Mountains like the wail of 1,000 dying souls. Inside the shallow cave, 6 of America's most elite warriors sat in silence, listening to their commanding officer's GPS beacon emit nothing but static. Master Chief Graham Walsh pressed his radio transmission button one final time. His voice carried the weight of a decision no SEAL ever wanted to make. Base, this is Bravo 5. Status update. Captain Nathan Ashford is presumed killed in action. I repeat, Captain Ashford is KIA. We have lost all GPS signal for 6 hours. Hurricane Elena has made recovery impossible. We are preparing to extract at first light. Over. The response crackled through the encrypted channel. Copy Bravo 5. Understood. Mark Captain Ashford as KIA. Authorization granted to extract your team when conditions allow. Our thoughts are with you. Base out. Senior Chief Robert Hayes sat with his back against the cave wall, staring at the floor between his boots. Rain hammered the mountain outside with such force that it sounded like automatic weapons fire. The wind gusts topped 140 miles per hour. Trees that had stood for centuries were falling like matchsticks. 6 hours, Hayes said to no one in particular. Nobody survives 6 hours in this, not even the captain. Petty Officer Jake Sullivan, the team's medic, checked his watch for the 100th time. The mudslide hit at 1,400 hours. It's now 2,000. If the captain was injured when he went into that water, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Petty Officer Tommy O'Connor, the demolitions expert, shook his head slowly. Captain Ashford survived Desert Storm, survived 15 years of special operations, and a goddamn hurricane takes him out during a training exercise in North Carolina. Doesn't seem right. Master Chief Walsh stood and moved to the cave entrance, where sheets of rain obscured everything beyond 10 meters. Nothing about this is right. Hurricane Elena wasn't supposed to strengthen inland. It wasn't supposed to hit Category 4, and we weren't supposed to lose our commanding officer crossing a creek that's normally 3 meters wide. Near the back of the cave, partially hidden in shadow, sat an elderly man who didn't belong in a SEAL team cave. Colonel Marcus Trent was 67 years old. His hair had gone completely silver. Deep lines carved his weathered face. He'd retired from the Navy 15 years ago after 3 decades of classified operations that spanned from the Cold War to the Gulf War. But SEAL Command had asked him to come out of retirement for this training exercise. They wanted the new generation to learn old-school survival tactics, the kind of knowledge that couldn't be found in manuals or classified databases, the kind that only came from living through impossible situations and refusing to die. Trent sat quietly, listening to the younger men grieve. He'd heard these conversations before. Grenada, Panama, Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Iraq. Every war, every conflict, the same words. The same desperate hope that somehow, impossibly, their brother would walk back through that door. But deeper in the cave's shadows, someone else sat in complete silence. Petty Officer First Class Kira Blake. At 26 years old, she was the youngest member of SEAL Team 5. She was also the smallest at 5 feet 4 inches and 125 pounds. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her pale skin showed evidence of 15 years spent in the sun and salt water of coastal North Carolina. Her green eyes carried a focus that some of her teammates found unsettling. They called her Ghost because of her uncanny ability to disappear during training exercises. She could be standing next to you one moment and completely vanish the next. Some said it was because she was small and quiet. Others said it was something more, an almost supernatural ability to read terrain and shadow and become part of the environment. Her Mk-11 sniper rifle lay disassembled before her. Each component was being methodically cleaned and checked, despite having been stored in a waterproof case since the storm began. Her hands moved with mechanical precision, performing a ritual that had become second nature over hundreds of repetitions. But her mind was elsewhere. She was remembering another hurricane, another storm that everyone said was impossible. September 2011, Outer Banks, North Carolina, Hurricane Irene. 11-year-old Kira Blake stood in her family's beach house as the hurricane made landfall. The windows were boarded. The house groaned and creaked under the assault. But her father, Lieutenant Commander James Blake, stood calmly at the kitchen window, watching the storm's fury with the practiced eye of a professional. James Blake had spent 23 years in the Coast Guard as a rescue swimmer. He'd pulled more than 100 people from the ocean. He'd jumped from helicopters into seas that would kill most men in minutes. He'd earned the Coast Guard Medal, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and the respect of every person who'd ever served with him. "Come here, sweetheart," he said, gesturing to Kira. "Watch the trees." Kira moved to his side. Through the small gap in the boards, she could see palm trees bending almost horizontal. Rain came down so hard it looked solid. "What am I watching for?" she asked. "The rhythm. Everything in nature has rhythm. Even chaos. See how the wind gusts, then calms, then gusts again? Count the seconds." Kira counted. 45 seconds of peak wind, 30 seconds of relative calm, then another gust. "The hurricane has patterns," her father continued. "It has rules. Most people panic because they see the chaos. But if you know how to listen, if you know how to watch, you can predict it. You can work with it instead of against it." Her mother, Dr. Patricia Blake, sat at the kitchen table with a laptop showing real-time satellite imagery from NOAA, where she worked as a senior hurricane researcher. "James, you're teaching our daughter how to survive Category 3 conditions. She's 11. And someday, she might need to know this." He turned back to Kira. "What do you hear now?" Kira closed her eyes. The wind was shifting. It had been coming from the northeast. Now it was more from the east. "That's right," her father said. "The eye wall is rotating as it passes. You can navigate by that. The storm tells you which direction it's moving if you know how to listen." 3 days later, when the hurricane had passed and the Coast Guard called Lieutenant Commander Blake to assist with search and rescue operations, 11-year-old Kira insisted on going with him. She watched her father pull 3 families from flooded homes. She saw him dive into storm-surge waters to reach an elderly couple trapped in their attic. "You don't leave people behind," he told her that night, exhausted, still in his wet gear. "I don't care how tired you are, how scared you are, how impossible it seems. If someone needs help, you help them. That's the job." October 2012, Hurricane Sandy. Kira was 12 years old when her father's helicopter went down. He was attempting to rescue a fishing crew stranded on a boat taking on water in 70-foot seas. Mechanical failure and sustained winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. The helicopter crashed into the Atlantic. Lieutenant Commander James Blake and his crew saved all 5 fishermen before the aircraft went down. None of the Coast Guard personnel survived. At her father's funeral, they presented Kira with his rescue swimmer badge. The speaker said her father had lived by the Coast Guard motto, "You have to go out, but you don't have to come back." 12-year-old Kira Blake, standing in her dress uniform at Arlington National Cemetery, made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She would become the kind of person who went out when everyone else said it was impossible. She would honor her father by refusing to leave people behind. Present day, Blue Ridge Mountains, 2000 hours. "Blake!" Kira looked up from her rifle. Master Chief Walsh was standing over her. "Yes, Master Chief." "You've been quiet. You good?" She nodded once. "I'm good, Master Chief." Walsh studied her for a moment. Despite her perfect qualification scores, despite her flawless performance record, Kira Blake still faced skepticism from some members of her team. Senior Chief Hayes was the most vocal. He stood now, moving to where Walsh and Kira were talking. "Master Chief, we need to discuss extraction plans. When this storm clears enough for helicopter operations, we need to be ready to move. We also need to discuss," he paused, glancing at Kira, We need to discuss the captain's body recovery. Walsh's jaw tightened. I know, Senior Chief. Kira's voice cut through the sound of rain. Sir, I've been thinking about the terrain. Both men turned to look at her. Captain Ashford went into the water at grid coordinates 347-891. The creek flows northeast. Current velocity under flood conditions would be approximately 12 to 15 miles per hour. Accounting for 6 hours of drift, subtracting time for any obstacles or eddies, his probable location would be within a 3-kilometer radius of grid 350-895. Hayes stared at her. Blake, the captain went into a flash flood during a Category 4 hurricane. He's not at any grid coordinates. He's dead. Kira's expression didn't change. Senior Chief, I'm aware of the statistical probability, but if there's any chance Captain Ashford survived, he would seek high ground with natural wind protection. I've been studying the topographical maps. There are 3 locations within the probable drift zone that meet those criteria. Christ, Blake, Hayes shook his head. This isn't about optimism or hoping for the best. The man is gone. Kira began reassembling her rifle with smooth, practiced movements. Captain Ashford spent the last month training us on terrain analysis and survival psychology. He taught us that injured personnel instinctively seek 3 things: shelter from immediate threat, elevation for visibility, and proximity to their last known team location. If he survived the initial impact, his training would take over. Master Chief Walsh crossed his arms. What are you suggesting, Blake? She looked up at him. I'm suggesting that Captain Ashford might still be alive, and if he is, we're running out of time to find him. The cave fell silent except for the howling wind outside. Sullivan moved closer to the conversation. O'Connor stood as well. All eyes were on Kira Blake. Hayes's voice carried an edge. Even if by some miracle the captain survived, which he didn't, we can't mount a search and rescue operation in these conditions. Visibility is 10 meters. The wind would knock a man off his feet. Trees are falling every few minutes. Flash floods are everywhere. It would be suicide. Kira finished reassembling her rifle and stood. She was a full foot shorter than Hayes, but she met his eyes directly. Senior Chief, I'm not suggesting we send the whole team. I'm requesting permission to conduct a solo reconnaissance. 1 hour. If I don't find actionable intelligence, I return and we proceed with body recovery at first light. Hayes actually laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. You cannot be serious. You're a sniper, Blake. You're trained to sit still and shoot people from 1,000 meters away. You're not a search and rescue operator. And even if you were, you weigh what, 120? The captain is 195. You couldn't carry him 50 meters, let alone 3 kilometers through a hurricane. I don't need to carry him, Senior Chief. I need to find him and assess his condition. If he's alive, I can stabilize him and guide the team to his location when conditions improve. When conditions improve, he'll be dead from exposure or blood loss, if he isn't already. Kira's voice remained calm. Then we'll have confirmation. But right now we're making assumptions based on probability instead of evidence. Master Chief Walsh held up a hand. Everyone take a breath. He turned to Kira. Blake, I appreciate your dedication, but Senior Chief Hayes raises valid points. This is Category 4 hurricane conditions. 0 visibility, extreme hazards, and you're talking about going out there alone. From the shadows near the cave entrance, Colonel Marcus Trent spoke for the first time since the captain had been declared KIA. She won't be alone. Every head turned. Trent stood slowly, his joints stiff from sitting too long in the cold and damp. But when he rose to his full height, there was still something formidable about him, something that reminded everyone in that cave that this man had survived situations that would have killed ordinary people. Colonel, Walsh said carefully, Sir, with all respect, I'm 67 years old, I know. You're going to tell me I'm too old for a mission like this. Trent walked toward the group. His gait was slower than it had been 30 years ago, but it was steady, confident. In 1991, during Desert Storm, my team was caught in a sandstorm that lasted 18 hours. Visibility was zero. Wind speeds exceeded 90 miles per hour. We had a wounded man who needed extraction. Everyone said it was impossible to move. We moved anyway. We brought him home. He looked at Kira. Petty Officer Blake is correct in her analysis. If Captain Ashford survived the initial trauma, he would seek high ground and shelter. The 3 locations she identified are exactly where I would go. Her calculations are sound. Hayes stepped forward. Colonel Trent, even if the analysis is correct, sending a 125-pound female operator into a Category 4 hurricane is exactly the right tactical decision, Trent interrupted. Blake's size is an advantage, not a liability. She has lower wind resistance. She can move through debris fields that would stop a larger person. And more importantly, she has specific knowledge that nobody else in this cave possesses. Walsh frowned. What knowledge, sir? Trent turned to Kira. Blake, tell them about your parents. Kira hesitated, then spoke quietly. My father was Lieutenant Commander James Blake, Coast Guard rescue swimmer. My mother is Dr. Patricia Blake, senior hurricane researcher at NOAA. I spent my childhood learning to read storm patterns and navigate extreme weather. Hurricane Irene in 2011, Hurricane Sandy in 2012, multiple tropical storms and nor'easters every year. This is the environment I was raised in. The cave was silent. Trent continued. I've read Blake's file. Her father died during Hurricane Sandy rescue operations. He saved 5 people before his helicopter went down. He taught her something that can't be learned in SEAL training. He taught her that storms have rhythm, that you don't fight them, you work with them. He turned to Walsh. Master Chief, I'm volunteering to accompany Petty Officer Blake on this reconnaissance mission. She has youth and specific environmental expertise. I have tactical experience and knowledge of Captain Ashford's training philosophy. Together, we have a legitimate chance of locating him. Hayes's face was red. Colonel, you're asking us to send our youngest operator and our oldest advisor into a death trap based on a 1% chance the captain survived. No, Senior Chief. I'm telling you that we have a responsibility to verify the captain's status before we declare him KIA, and I'm offering the most tactically sound approach to accomplish that mission. Kira pulled a laminated topographical map from her pack and spread it on the ground. Captain Ashford trained us on terrain analysis last month. He specifically taught us to identify natural shelter locations in hostile environments. High ground with wind protection. Here, here, and here. She pointed to 3 locations on the map. I can check all 3 locations within 90 minutes if I time my movement with the storm patterns. Hayes knelt beside the map. You're talking about moving 3 clicks through mountain terrain in hurricane-force winds in the dark with 0 support. Blake, this is insane. It's calculated risk, Senior Chief, and Colonel Trent and I have the specific skill sets required. What skill set? Being small and stubborn? Kira met his eyes. Understanding hurricanes, Senior Chief, knowing how to move when everyone else takes shelter. My father taught me that storms have rhythm. You don't fight them, you work with them. I can time my movement with the wind cycles. I can navigate by sound and terrain features. And my size is an advantage, not a liability. Master Chief Walsh studied the map, then looked at Trent. Colonel, real talk, you're 67. Can you handle this physically? Trent smiled slightly. Master Chief, I ran missions in Afghanistan in the winter of '83 when I was 30. Minus 40 degrees, whiteout conditions, mountainous terrain. I'm not as fast as I was, but I'm smarter. And this young operator has skills I never had. Together, we complement each other's weaknesses. Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Rain drummed against the mountainside. Thunder rolled through the valley below. Senior Chief, what's your assessment? Hayes stood, jaw tight. My assessment is that we would be sending one of our operators and our special advisor into a death trap based on a 1% chance the captain survived. And even if they somehow found him alive, they couldn't extract him. We'd lose 3 people instead of 1. Noted. Walsh turned to Kira. Worst case scenario, you find the captain. He's alive but seriously injured. You can't move him. What's your play? Stabilize him with field medicine. Mark his location with GPS. Return with intelligence for a coordinated extraction when conditions allow. And if you encounter hostiles, we intercepted that radio fragment earlier. Someone else is out there. I avoid contact if possible. If forced to engage, I eliminate the threat and continue mission. Hayes stepped closer. Blake, listen to yourself. You're talking about soloing through a Category 4 hurricane, navigating 3 clicks of mountain terrain in 0 visibility, potentially engaging enemy forces, and performing field medicine on a critically injured man who weighs 70 pounds more than you. This isn't confidence. This is delusion. Kira's voice remained steady. Senior Chief, respectfully, you're wrong. This isn't delusion. This is exactly what I've trained for my entire life. She reached into her pack and pulled out a small metal badge. Even in the dim light of the cave, it gleamed. The Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer Badge. My father died doing the impossible to save 5 strangers. I'm proposing to risk my life to save 1 teammate. That's not delusion, Senior Chief. That's the job. The cave fell silent again. Master Chief Walsh looked at the badge in Kira's hand, then at her face. He saw something there that made him pause. It wasn't bravado or recklessness. It was certainty. He'd seen that look before in the eyes of operators who knew, absolutely knew, they could accomplish a mission that everyone else thought was impossible. But before Walsh could respond, the encrypted radio on his vest crackled to life. Static. Then voices. Faint but unmistakable. Russian voices. Everyone froze. Sullivan moved to the radio equipment and began working the frequencies. The voices came through clearer. Package secured. Moving to extraction point, Gamma. Weather provides excellent cover. The transmission cut out. Trent's face had gone hard. Play that again. Sullivan replayed the recording. That's military Russian, Trent said quietly. Professional operators. And they said, package secured. Walsh's expression darkened. They have someone. Could be the captain. Hayes shook his head. Or it could be completely unrelated. Smugglers, drug runners, anything. We can't assume. No, Trent interrupted. That phrasing, package secured. That's military terminology, and the timing is too coincidental. A SEAL training exercise during a hurricane, and professional Russian speakers are operating in the same mountains with a secured package? He looked at Walsh. Master Chief, this changes everything. If hostile forces have Captain Ashford, this isn't a rescue mission anymore. It's a recovery operation. And the window is closing fast. Kira had gone completely still, her mind racing through tactical implications. If they have the captain, they're using the hurricane as cover for extraction, which means they planned this. The training exercise, the timing with the storm, it wasn't coincidence. Walsh turned to her. You're suggesting this was a targeted operation? I'm suggesting that we need to verify Captain Ashford's status immediately. And if hostile forces do have him, every minute we delay is a minute closer to losing him permanently. Trent nodded. Agreed. Master Chief, Petty Officer Blake and I need to move now. We check those 3 high-ground locations. We gather intelligence. If we find evidence of hostile forces, we report and extract. If we find the captain, we assess and hold position until the team can link up. Hayes stepped between them and Walsh. Graham, you cannot be seriously considering this. We'd be sending them into a Category 4 hurricane with possible enemy forces operating in the area. This is beyond risky. This is our responsibility, Walsh said quietly. He met Hayes's eyes. Robert, if there's any chance the captain is alive, if there's any chance he's been taken by hostile forces, we have a duty to act. Not tomorrow when the storm clears. Now, he turned to Kira and Trent. You have 90 minutes. Radio check every 15 minutes on encrypted channel. If you miss a single check, we mark you as KIA and extract at first light. If you encounter hostiles, you assess from a distance and report. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. If you find the captain deceased, you mark location and return. If you find him alive but cannot safely move him, you mark his location and return. Are these orders clear? Crystal clear, Master Chief, Kira said. And if I give you a direct order to abort at any point, you follow that order immediately. No hesitation, no heroics. Understood? Understood, Master Chief. Trent added his confirmation. Understood. Hayes's voice was tight with anger. Graham, this is a mistake. We're going to lose them out there. Walsh kept his eyes on Kira and Trent. Maybe, but they're right about one thing. We're making assumptions without evidence. If there's any chance Captain Ashford is alive, we owe it to him to check. Blake, Trent, you have 90 minutes starting the moment you leave this cave, not 1 minute more. Kira nodded once. She returned her father's badge to her pack and began checking her gear with methodical precision. M.K. 11 sniper rifle secured in waterproof case. G.P. S unit fully charged. Encrypted radio on designated channel. First aid kit. Emergency beacon. Night vision goggles. Handheld compass as backup navigation. She moved through the checklist with mechanical precision, her hands steady despite knowing what she was about to walk into. Sullivan approached her. Ghost, take this. He handed her 2 morphine auto-injectors. If the captain's hurt as bad as we think, he's going to need it. Thanks, Doc. O'Connor offered her 2 additional fragmentation grenades. Just in case those hostiles we heard are real. Make noise, create chaos, get out. Appreciate it, Breacher. She strapped on her tactical vest, secured her rifle across her back, and pulled up her hood. The Gore-Tex rain gear was rated for extreme weather, but she knew it would be tested beyond its specifications in the next 90 minutes. Trent was gearing up more slowly, but with the same methodical precision. His movements spoke of decades of muscle memory. Despite his age, despite the stiffness in his joints, he was still a warrior preparing for battle. Master Chief Walsh walked them to the cave entrance. The sound of the hurricane was deafening this close to the opening. Rain came down in sheets so thick it looked like a solid wall of water. Blake, Trent, I'm putting a lot of faith in your judgment. Don't make me regret this. Kira met his eyes. We won't, Master Chief, Trent added. We'll bring him home, Graham, one way or another. Senior Chief Hayes called out behind them. Ghost, this is suicide, you know that, right? You're going to die out there for nothing. Kira paused at the threshold between shelter and storm. She turned back, rain already soaking through her hood. If I die trying to save Captain Ashford, Senior Chief, then I die like my father did, trying to bring someone home. That's not nothing. And then she stepped into the hurricane. The wind hit her like a physical blow, nearly knocking her off her feet. The rain struck her face with enough force to sting. Visibility dropped to perhaps 3 meters. Thunder crashed overhead so loud it felt like artillery fire. Trent stepped out beside her, moving more carefully, using his trekking pole for stability. Kira stood for a moment at the edge of the maelstrom, letting her body remember what her mind had learned 15 years ago on the Outer Banks. She closed her eyes and listened. There, the rhythm. 45 seconds of peak wind, 30 seconds of relative calm, then another gust. The hurricane had patterns. It had rules. You just had to know how to hear them. She opened her eyes and checked her compass. Northeast, 3.2 kilometers, 3 potential locations, 90 minutes. Kira began to move. She timed her steps with the wind cycles, using the brief lulls to cover ground, embracing herself during the gusts. She navigated by terrain feel as much as by sight, her boots finding purchase on stone and root by instinct. Trent followed, slower but steady, trusting her to lead through the storm. Lightning flashes gave them momentary glimpses of the landscape. Thunder told them when the storm's energy was concentrating. This was what her father had taught her. The hurricane wasn't an enemy, it was an environment. And like any environment, you could learn to survive in it. 15 minutes into their movement, Kira's radio crackled. "Ghost, this is Alpha. First radio check. Status." She pressed against a large oak tree, using it as a windbreak while she responded. "Alpha, this is Ghost. En route to checkpoint 1. No enemy contact. Visibility approximately 3 meters. Continuing northeast." "Copy, Ghost. Next check in 15. Alpha out." The tree she was sheltering behind groaned ominously. Kira moved away from it just as a massive branch snapped off and crashed to the ground where she'd been standing 3 seconds earlier. She didn't flinch. She simply adjusted her route and continued moving. Trent keyed his radio. "She's good, Graham. Real good. Like watching her father work." At 23 minutes, Kira found the first piece of evidence, a section of torn fabric caught on a thorn bush. She pulled it free and examined it in a lightning flash. Standard issue tactical uniform, the same pattern Captain Ashford had been wearing. The fabric was fresh, still bleeding dye into the rain. He'd been here, or at least his gear had. She marked the location on her GPS and continued northeast, following the logical terrain features a trained operator would use for navigation. High ground, natural channels, avoiding the valleys where flash floods would be most dangerous. At 31 minutes, she found the boot print. It was in a small depression where mud had collected between 2 rocks. The rain was washing it away even as she looked at it, but the pattern was clear. Size 11 combat boot, Captain Ashford's size. And it was oriented northeast. He'd been moving. Recently. Her heart rate increased. She keyed her radio. "Alpha, this is Ghost. Second check. I have evidence Captain was mobile within the last 2 hours. Boot print, fresh fabric, continuing search pattern." Master Chief Walsh's voice came back immediately. "Copy, Ghost. Explain mobile." "Boot print indicates he was walking northeast, likely following high ground. Print is less than 2 hours old based on erosion patterns." There was a pause. "If he was walking 2 hours ago, where is he now?" "That's what we're trying to find out, Master Chief." Ghost out. Trent moved up beside her, studying the boot print with his flashlight shielded from the wind. "Good eyes, Blake. The print is degraded, but the depth suggests he was putting weight on this leg, not dragging it. That's a positive sign." They pressed forward with renewed urgency. If Captain Ashford had been mobile 2 hours ago, he might still be conscious, might still be fighting to survive. At 38 minutes, Kira heard something that made her freeze instantly. Voices. The wind was howling, the rain was hammering down. But underneath those sounds, carried on a brief lull in the storm, she heard human voices. And they weren't speaking English. She dropped into a low crouch and advanced toward the sound with the careful precision of a predator. Trent followed, moving more slowly but with equal caution. They reached a ridgeline and went prone. Kira pulled out her rifle scope to use as an observation tool. Through the rain and darkness, illuminated by periodic lightning flashes, she saw them. 4 men in tactical gear. Moving in a coordinated search pattern, professional spacing, hand signals. They were military trained, or close to it. And the language they were speaking was Russian. Her encrypted radio couldn't be intercepted by normal means, but Kira stayed silent, watching. One of the men was speaking into a radio. During a lightning flash, she got a clear look at his face. Older, maybe 55, Slavic features, scar tissue on his left cheek. Moving with the confidence of someone who'd spent decades in special operations. Kira had been shown intelligence briefings on various threats. She recognized this man, Viktor Volkov, former Russian Spetsnaz, dishonorably discharged in 2008, now a mercenary who trained militia groups and criminal organizations throughout the United States. The FBI had a file on him 2 inches thick, and he was here, in the North Carolina mountains, during a hurricane, with at least 3 other armed men. Volkov was gesturing to his men, pointing northeast. They were searching for something, or someone. Then Kira saw what made her blood run cold. One of the men was dragging something, an improvised stretcher made from branches and a poncho. On that stretcher, barely visible through the rain, was Captain Nathan Ashford. He was alive, but he was their prisoner. Kira's mind raced through tactical options. 4 armed men, professional training, unknown additional forces. She and Trent were equipped for reconnaissance, not assault. The smart play was to observe, gather intelligence, and report back to the team. But Captain Ashford was right there, 100 meters away, and they were moving him farther from friendly territory with every step. She thought of her father. You don't leave people behind. She keyed her radio, keeping her voice to barely a whisper. Alpha, this is Ghost. Emergency traffic. Walsh's voice came back immediately. Go ahead, Ghost. I have visual on Captain Ashford. He is alive. He is being held by 4 armed hostiles. Russian speakers. Leader matches description of Viktor Volkov from threat assessments. They are moving him northeast, likely to extraction point. Request immediate guidance. The pause that followed felt like an eternity. Ghost, this is Alpha. Confirm you said 4 armed hostiles. Affirmative. Professional tactics. Military-grade equipment. They appear to be using the hurricane as cover for an operation. Another pause. Ghost, you are ordered to observe only. Do not engage. Maintain visual contact and provide updates. We will coordinate a response when conditions allow. Acknowledge. Kira watched as the 4 men continued moving Captain Ashford away. Even at this distance, even in the darkness, she could see he was injured. His leg was bent at an unnatural angle. His uniform was soaked with blood. How long did he have? How much blood could he afford to lose? Trent's hand touched her shoulder. He'd been listening to the exchange. His eyes asked the question. What do we do? Ghost, acknowledge the order. She pressed the transmit button. Alpha, I acknowledge. Observe only. Ghost out. But even as she said the words, Kira Blake knew that observe only wasn't going to be enough. Not when Captain Ashford's life was measured in minutes, not hours. Not when 4 armed men thought they were alone in the storm. And not when a ghost was hunting them. She looked at Trent. He was 67 years old, retired 15 years, but in his eyes, she saw the same calculation she was making. He nodded once. They began to move, circling around the hostile force, using the terrain and storm to mask their approach. The radio check could wait. Right now they had a captain to save. Kira Blake moved through the hurricane like a shadow given form. The wind that would have knocked most people off their feet became her ally. The rain that reduced visibility to mere meters became her concealment. The thunder that crashed overhead became cover for the small sounds of her movement. She had been tracking Viktor Volkov's team for 23 minutes now. They were good, professional. They maintained tactical spacing even in the brutal conditions. They communicated with hand signals when possible, minimizing radio chatter. They checked their six regularly. These weren't militia weekend warriors playing soldier. These were men who had been trained by someone who knew what he was doing. And that someone was clearly Volkov himself. Colonel Marcus Trent moved 30 meters behind her, maintaining overwatch position. His age showed in his slower pace, but his tactical discipline was flawless. He was reading the terrain, anticipating threats, covering angles that Kira couldn't see. Through her rifle scope during lightning flashes, Kira memorized their patterns. The point man was cautious, checking corners and obstacles before signaling the team forward. The 2 middlemen took turns carrying Captain Ashford's improvised stretcher. Volkov himself walked rearguard, constantly scanning for threats. They were moving northeast toward higher ground. Smart. When the hurricane passed, that elevation would give them visibility and defensible terrain. It would also put them farther from SEAL Team 5's position with every minute that passed. Captain Ashford was still conscious. Kira could see him occasionally lift his head, trying to assess his surroundings. His left leg was clearly broken. The unnatural angle suggested a compound fracture. Dark stains on his uniform indicated significant bleeding from at least 2 locations. He was running out of time. Kira maintained a distance of 70 to 90 meters, using the terrain to stay invisible. Her small size allowed her to move through gaps in the undergrowth that would have caught on a larger person's gear. Her intimate knowledge of storm patterns let her anticipate when the wind would gust and when it would lull, timing her movements accordingly. At the 45-minute mark of their original 90-minute timeline, her radio crackled. "Ghost, this is Alpha. Third check. Status." She pressed herself against a moss-covered boulder, using it as both cover and a windbreak. "Alpha, continuing to track hostile force. 4 combatants confirmed. Captain appears conscious but seriously injured. They're moving to high ground. Probable extraction or rally point. Distance to their position, 70 meters. Master Chief Walsh's voice carried an edge. "Ghost, you are 15 minutes from mission timeline expiration. You need to break contact and return to base. That's a direct order." Kira watched through her scope as one of the men stumbled, nearly dropping the stretcher. Captain Ashford's head lolled to the side. He was weakening. "Alpha, if I break contact now, we lose the captain. They're moving him away from our position at approximately 1 kilometer per hour. By the time conditions allow team movement, they'll be gone." The pause stretched long. "Ghost, you've been out there for 46 minutes in Category 4 conditions. You need to think about your own survival. Get back here while you still can." Behind her, Trent's voice came through on a private channel. "Blake, the Master Chief is right. We've gathered intelligence. We know the captain is alive, and we know who has him. That's enough. We can coordinate a proper response." Kira didn't respond immediately. She was watching one of the men pull out thermal imaging equipment. He was scanning the surrounding area, looking for heat signatures. The rain and wind would degrade the thermal imaging significantly, and Kira's position behind the boulder provided thermal masking from the rock's retained heat. But if she moved, if she exposed herself, they would see her. She stayed perfectly still. The man with the thermal scanner swept across her position, paused, swept back. Kira held her breath. Her heart rate was elevated from exertion, which meant elevated body heat. But the boulder was large and the rain was cold. The temperature differential should be enough to mask her. The man said something to Volkov and shook his head. No contacts. He put the thermal gear away. Kira exhaled slowly. Her radio crackled again. Senior Chief Hayes' voice cut through the channel. "Blake, get your ass back here right now. That's not a request." She keyed the mic, keeping her voice barely above a whisper. "Alpha, I'm looking at Captain Ashford through my scope right now. He's losing blood. He's losing consciousness. If I leave now, we lose our only chance to save him." She paused. "My father died saving 5 people in a hurricane. I'm asking you to let me save one." The silence on the radio stretched for 10 full seconds. When Master Chief Walsh spoke again, his voice was different, quieter. "Blake, what's your tactical plan?" Senior Chief Hayes' voice erupted in the background. "Graham, you cannot be seriously considering—" "Quiet, Robert," Walsh continued. "Ghost, I'm asking you directly. What is your plan?" Kira quickly assessed the situation through her scope. 4 hostiles, 2 on perimeter security, 1 tending to the captain, Volkov commanding. Current range is 85 meters. Wind is gusting at approximately 60 miles per hour with lulls every 45 seconds. Rain is heavy but consistent. I have clear lines of sight on both perimeter guards. Ghost, you cannot engage 4 hostiles solo in these conditions. Trent's voice came through on the command channel. Master Chief requests permission to speak. "Go ahead, Colonel." "Sir, Petty Officer Blake has been operating in these conditions for nearly an hour now. She's demonstrated exceptional capability. I'm in overwatch position approximately 40 meters behind her. I can provide tactical support in covering fire if necessary. Hayes's voice was sharp. Colonel, with all respect, you're 67 years old with a bolt-action rifle from the Gulf War. You're not providing covering fire against professional operators. Senior Chief, I'm 67 years old with more combat experience than everyone in this cave combined, and this rifle has killed men at ranges you've only dreamed about. Don't underestimate what old warriors can do when young warriors are counting on us. There was a moment of stunned silence. Walsh spoke carefully. Colonel Trent, what's your honest assessment? Can you and Blake handle this? Negative, Master Chief. We cannot handle a direct assault on 4 professionals. But Blake doesn't need to assault them. She needs to eliminate the perimeter guards before they can raise an alarm. Then it becomes a 2-on-2 situation instead of 4-on-2. Kira added, and I have surprise, Master Chief. They think nobody is crazy enough to be out in this hurricane. They're wrong. Another pause. Ghost, if I authorize this, you engage only the perimeter guards. You do not, I repeat, do not attempt to assault the main position. You eliminate the immediate threats. Then you hold position and wait for team link-up. Clear? Crystal clear, Master Chief. And Colonel Trent, you provide overwatch only. You do not expose yourself to enemy fire. Your job is to keep Ghost alive and report if the situation deteriorates. Understood? Understood, sir. Walsh took a breath. Ghost, you are authorized to engage at your discretion. Eliminate the perimeter threats. Secure a position where you can observe the captain. Hold until we can effect link-up. We'll start moving toward your position as soon as we have sufficient visibility. Kira felt something settle in her chest. Certainty. Copy, Alpha. Engaging on my timeline. Ghost out. She heard Hayes's voice in the background, furious, but Walsh had made his decision. Trent's private channel clicked. Blake, listen to me. You're about to attempt something that would be difficult for a seasoned operator in ideal conditions. In a hurricane, at night, against professionals, the margin for error is 0. I know, Colonel. Your father would be proud of you, but he'd also want you to be smart. Take your time. Make the shots count. Don't rush. Roger that. And Blake, I've got your back. Literally. You make those shots, and if anything goes sideways, I'll make sure you have time to get to cover. Thank you, sir. Kira settled into her firing position behind the boulder. She extended the rifle's bipod and locked it against the stone. She activated her night vision scope and began calculating the shot. Range to first target, 95 meters. Wind gusting between 45 and 70 miles per hour from the northeast. Rain heavy, consistent. Target moving in patrol pattern, approximately 1 meter lateral movement every 8 seconds. The shot was difficult, but not impossible. She'd made harder shots during training, but never in Category 4 hurricane conditions. Never with a teammate's life hanging in the balance. Kira controlled her breathing. She let her heart rate settle. She became aware of the wind patterns, waiting for the rhythm she'd learned as a child. Strong gust, 45 seconds. Then a lull. The perimeter guard paused at the northern edge of his patrol route. He was looking outward, away from her position, scanning for threats that he didn't believe existed. Kira waited for the wind to lull. The gust peaked and began to fade. The rain continued, but the lateral pressure decreased. For 30 seconds, the hurricane took a breath. The guard turned slightly. His profile became visible against the slightly lighter sky. Kira exhaled half her breath. Her finger moved to the trigger. She calculated the wind drift. At 95 meters in 60-mile-per-hour wind, the bullet would drift approximately 6 inches. She adjusted her aim 6 inches into the wind. She squeezed the trigger. The suppressed rifle made a sound like a sharp cough. The sound was immediately swallowed by the storm. Through her scope, she saw the guard's head snap back. He dropped instantly, falling behind the boulder he'd been standing next to. His body landed in a position where the other guards couldn't immediately see him. One down. Kira worked the bolts smoothly, chambering another round. She shifted her aim to the second perimeter guard, who was on the eastern side of the position, approximately 110 meters away. This guard was more alert. He was scanning actively, moving unpredictably. He seemed to sense something was wrong, even though he couldn't have heard the shot or seen his partner fall. Kira waited. Patience was a sniper's greatest weapon. The second guard moved to a new position. Then he paused, bringing his radio to his mouth. He was checking in with the first guard. When the first guard didn't respond, the second guard would raise the alarm. Kira had maybe 15 seconds. She tracked him through the scope. He was moving toward the first guard's position, concerned by the lack of response. He was walking quickly, weapon at the ready. Then he stepped into an open area, 3 meters of clear ground between two rock formations. Kira fired. The bullet caught him center mass. He staggered, tried to raise his weapon, and collapsed. 2 down. But this guard fell in an exposed position. The men at the main shelter would see him within seconds. She heard shouting in Russian. The element of surprise was gone. Through her scope, she saw Volkov react immediately. He grabbed Captain Ashford and hauled him behind the largest boulder. The remaining guard took up a defensive position, scanning for the shooter's location. They knew someone was out there now, but they didn't know where. And in these conditions, with this visibility, she still had an advantage. Trent's voice came through her earpiece. "Ghost, beautiful shooting, but they're going defensive now. Your next move?" "Relocating. Need a different angle." "Copy. I'm moving to support position. If they flush you, I'll engage to give you cover." Kira moved 20 meters to the east, using the storm and terrain to mask her movement. She found a new firing position on higher ground, giving her a different angle on the shelter. Through her new vantage point, she could see the remaining guard. He was good. He wasn't exposing himself. He was using cover effectively, and he was communicating with Volkov, who was somewhere deeper in the shelter. She needed to draw them out. Kira picked up a rock and threw it 40 meters to her left. It clattered against stone, creating a sound that carried even through the wind. The guard reacted instantly, firing 3 rounds toward the sound. His muzzle flash gave away his exact position. Kira aimed and fired in one smooth motion. The guard dropped. 3 down, 1 remaining. But the last one was Viktor Volkov, former Spetsnaz, a man who had survived decades of combat. He wasn't going to make the same mistakes his men had made. Kira heard his voice calling out in Russian accented English. "American sniper, very impressive. You kill 3 of my men in Hurricane. This is professional work." She didn't respond. She was scanning the shelter through her scope, looking for any exposure, any opportunity. "I know you can hear me," Volkov continued. "You are SEAL, yes? You are here for your captain. I respect this. Is honorable." Kira repositioned again, moving to a spot where she could see a different angle of the shelter. "I make you offer," Volkov called out. "You leave now. I let your captain live. You stay, I kill him. Is simple choice." Through a gap in the rocks, Kira caught a glimpse of movement. Volkov was shifting position, and he had Captain Ashford with him. He was using the captain as a human shield. "I count to 10, Volkov shouted. "If you don't show yourself, I shoot your captain. 1, 2, 3. Kira's mind raced. She couldn't get a clean shot. Volkov was too well protected, and he was keeping Captain Ashford between himself and any probable sniper positions. 4, 5, 6. She needed to change the equation, create a new dynamic. 7, 8. Kira made a decision. She keyed her radio on an open channel that Volkov's equipment might intercept. She spoke loud enough to carry. "Volkov, this is SEAL Team 5. You are surrounded. We have your position locked. Surrender now and you might survive this." Volkov laughed. The sound carried through the storm. "Clever, but I am not fool. If you had full team, you would have assaulted already. You are alone. 1 person. Very skilled person, but alone. He was right, and he knew it. 9. Kira's finger was on the trigger, but she had no shot. Captain Ashford's life was measured in seconds. 10. She heard the gunshot. A single round. Her heart stopped. But then she heard Captain Ashford's voice, weak but clear. "Missed, you Russian bastard." Volkov hadn't shot to kill. He'd shot to wound, to emphasize his control of the situation. "Next time I don't miss," Volkov called out. "You have 30 seconds. Show yourself, or he dies." Kira assessed her options. She could reveal her position, which would likely get her killed, but might buy Captain Ashford time. She could hold position and hope for an opening, which would definitely result in the captain being executed. Or she could create a distraction big enough to force Volkov to react. She reached for one of the fragmentation grenades Tommy O'Connor had given her. The throw would reveal her position, but it would also force Volkov to move, and when he moved, she might get a shot. Kira pulled the pin and threw the grenade in a high arc. It sailed through the rain and landed 30 meters from the shelter, on the opposite side from her position. The explosion was deafening even through the storm. Rock fragments and debris flew in all directions. Volkov reacted exactly as she'd hoped. He assumed the explosion meant an assault from that direction. He shifted position to face the new threat, dragging Captain Ashford with him. For just a moment, a 2-second window, his head was exposed. Kira fired. The bullet struck rock 6 inches from Volkov's head, showering him with fragments. She'd missed. The wind had shifted at the last instant, but the near miss had the desired effect. Volkov abandoned his position, hauling Captain Ashford deeper into the shelter complex, into a space where Kira had no line of sight. She had driven him back, but she still couldn't get to Captain Ashford. Trent's voice came through her earpiece. "Blake, status? I'm pinned. Volkov has the captain in deep cover. I can't get an angle." "Copy. I'm moving to your position. Maybe together we can—" He stopped mid-sentence. Kira heard it too. Through the storm, barely audible, the sound of vehicles. Multiple engines. They were distant, maybe 2 kilometers away, but they were getting closer. Volkov heard them too. He called out with renewed confidence. "You hear? My reinforcements arrive. 6 more men. Maybe you kill me. Yes, very possible. But then 6 more kill you and your captain. Is no win for you." Kira checked her ammunition. She had 21 rounds remaining in her rifle. 2 magazines for her sidearm. 1 grenade left. 6 more trained fighters would make this situation impossible, unless she acted now. Trent reached her position, breathing hard from the exertion. "Colonel, I need you to do something for me," Kira said quietly. "Name it." "I need you to get on the radio and tell Master Chief Walsh that I'm about to do something extremely stupid. Tell him if it works, we'll have the captain. If it doesn't work, he should recover my body and make sure my mother gets my father's badge back." Trent stared at her. "Blake, what are you—" "Tell him, Colonel. Then provide covering fire on my signal. You're going to assault the position. Alone against Volkov." "Yes, sir." "That's suicide." Kira met his eyes. "My father jumped out of a helicopter into 70-foot seas during a hurricane to save 5 strangers. I'm running toward 1 enemy to save 1 teammate. Compared to what he did, this is nothing." She checked her pistol, chambered around, and pulled her last grenade. "Blake, wait!" But she was already moving. Trent keyed his radio immediately. "Alpha, this is Hawk 6. Blake is assaulting the hostile position. Solo, she's going for the captain." Walsh's voice came back sharp. "Colonel, can you support?" "Negative, I'm too far, wrong angle. She's committed." Trent moved to higher ground, finding a position where he could observe. "I have overwatch. I'll provide intel and covering fire if she needs extraction." "Copy, Hawk 6. Keep her alive." "Roger that." Trent watched through his scope as Kira moved laterally first, putting herself on the southern approach to the shelter. It was the long way around, but it would give her a different angle, one Volkov wouldn't expect. The movement took 3 precious minutes. The sound of vehicles grew louder. They were maybe 1 kilometer away now. She reached the new position and looked through a gap in the rocks. She could see Captain Ashford now. He was propped against the cave wall, barely conscious. Blood soaked through his uniform. And she could see Volkov, partially exposed, tending to his own wound from the rock fragments. 50 meters of open ground separated her from the shelter entrance. The vehicles were close now, maybe 500 meters. Kira made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone else. She was going in. Not with careful sniper precision, not with tactical patience, with speed and aggression and the absolute refusal to leave Captain Ashford behind. She slung her rifle across her back and drew her sidearm. She pulled her second grenade and primed it. And then she ran. The 50-meter dash through the hurricane was the longest of her life. Wind tried to knock her down. Rain blinded her. The uneven ground threatened to turn her ankle with every step. Volkov saw her coming. She heard him shout in surprise, saw him raise his weapon. She threw the grenade toward his position and dove behind a boulder. The explosion rocked the entire shelter. Debris rained down. Dust and smoke mixed with rain. Trent fired twice toward Volkov's position from his overwatch. Suppressive fire, not accurate at this range in these conditions, but enough to make Volkov take cover instead of shooting Kira. "Ghost is inside," Trent reported to Walsh. "She's with the captain." Kira came up firing, 3 rounds toward where Volkov had been. Then she was moving again, bounding from cover to cover, closing the distance. She heard Volkov's weapon firing, heard bullets impact the stone around her, but she kept moving, kept pressing, kept attacking. She reached the shelter entrance and swept inside, weapon up, scanning for targets. Captain Ashford was there, exactly where she'd seen him. But Volkov was gone. He'd retreated deeper into the rock formation. "Ghost?" The captain's voice was weak. "That you?" "Yes, sir. I'm getting you out of here." Volkov's voice came from deeper in the shelter. "Impressive, little ghost. You are brave, but also foolish. My men arrive in 2 minutes. You cannot extract him before they come. You have trapped yourself." Kira knelt beside Captain Ashford and quickly assessed his injuries. Compound tibial fracture, just as she'd thought. Shrapnel wounds to his shoulder and side. Significant blood loss. He was in bad shape. She pulled out the field medical kit and went to work. Pressure bandages on the bleeding wounds. Splint for the broken leg using materials from her pack. Morphine injection to manage the pain. "Blake," the captain mumbled, "you shouldn't have come." "Sir, respectfully, please be quiet. I'm saving your life and I need to concentrate." While she worked, she kept her pistol within reach and her attention on the deeper recesses of the shelter. Volkov was back there somewhere, wounded maybe, definitely angry, and his reinforcements would arrive any moment. She keyed her radio. "Alpha, this is Ghost. I have secured Captain Ashford. He's alive but critical. I'm administering first aid now, but I have a problem." Master Chief Walsh's voice came back immediately. "Ghost, what's your situation?" Primary hostile retreated into the shelter complex. 6 additional hostiles inbound via vehicle. ETA approximately 90 seconds. I need immediate extraction guidance. Stand by. Kira continued working on Captain Ashford's wounds. She could hear Volkov moving in the darkness, could hear him speaking Russian into his radio, probably updating his reinforcements. The vehicle engines stopped somewhere close by. She heard doors opening, voices calling out in Russian. They were here. "Alpha, they're here. I need that guidance." Walsh's voice was grim. "Ghost, we're moving to your position, but we're at least 40 minutes out. Can you evade and hide until we arrive?" Kira looked at Captain Ashford. He was barely conscious. There was no way she could move him quickly enough to evade 6 fresh fighters. "Negative, Alpha. Captain cannot be moved fast enough. We'd be run down in minutes." Another pause. Then you need to hold that position, Ghost. Defend in place. We're coming as fast as we can. Kira felt the weight of those words. Defend in place. Against 6 professional fighters plus Volkov, with limited ammunition, with a critically injured man who couldn't fight for 40 minutes. Copy, Alpha. Defending in place. Ghost out. Trent's voice came through on private channel. Ghost, I'm moving to East Ridge. I can cover your 6 if more hostiles approach from outside. Those reinforcements might try to flank you. Copy, Hawk 6. Appreciate the overwatch. Blake, what you just did, your father would be speechless. I'm speechless. Hold position. We're almost there. Roger, Colonel. Kira knew Trent was out there in the storm, 67 years old, holding a position in hurricane conditions to make sure no one could flank her. The old warrior refusing to leave the young warrior alone. Captain Ashford's eyes focused on her. Blake, you need to leave. Get out while you can. Not happening, sir. That's an order. Respectfully, sir, I'm declining that order. Just like you taught us, sometimes the mission requirements override the chain of command. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Never thought my own lessons would be used against me. Yes, sir. Now stay quiet. I need to concentrate. Kira moved to the shelter entrance and assessed the tactical situation. She had limited ammunition, 7 hostiles total, 6 fresh fighters plus Volkov. Captain Ashford was immobile. Reinforcements were 40 minutes away. The numbers didn't add up to survival. But numbers had never stopped her father, and they wouldn't stop her. She checked her rifle. 21 rounds. Make each one count. She heard voices getting closer. They were organizing, probably getting a briefing from Volkov about what they were facing. One female sniper who had killed 3 of their comrades and refused to quit. They would be angry. They would be cautious. They would be coming in force. Kira settled into a defensive position where she could cover the most likely approaches. She controlled her breathing. She thought of her father. You have to go out, she whispered, but you don't have to come back. Then she waited for them to come. The first figure appeared at the shelter entrance, silhouetted against the storm. Kira fired twice. The figure dropped. 4 down, 6 to go. The night was about to get very long. The shelter entrance erupted in gunfire. Bullets ricocheted off stone, filling the confined space with the scream of fragmenting metal and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Kira pressed herself against the rock wall, making her body as small as possible while maintaining her line of sight on the approaches. She had just killed the 4th man. 6 remained, including Viktor Volkov. The incoming fire was disciplined, coordinated. These weren't panicked shots from untrained fighters. These were controlled bursts designed to suppress her position while other elements maneuvered. Military tactics, professional execution. Kira counted the weapons by their sound signatures. At least 3 AK pattern rifles, 1 heavier caliber, probably a designated marksman rifle, unknown number of sidearms. They were setting up a proper assault. Captain Ashford lay behind her in the alcove, propped against the shelter wall. The morphine had taken the edge off his pain, but he was still fading. His breathing was shallow. His skin was pale even in the dim light. Blood continued to seep through the pressure bandages despite Kira's best efforts. He needed a hospital. He needed it hours ago. But first they needed to survive the next 40 minutes. The gunfire stopped. Kira used the moment of silence to reload her rifle with a fresh magazine. 19 rounds remaining in her current magazine. 2 more full magazines in her vest. 47 total rounds between survival and death. A voice called out from beyond the shelter entrance. Russian accented English. Not Volkov's voice. Someone new. American woman. You fight well. You kill 4 of our men. This is impressive. But you must know you cannot win. We are 6. You are 1. And you have injured man who cannot run. This mathematics is simple. Kira didn't respond. She was scanning the shelter, looking for additional defensive advantages. The rock formation had multiple small openings where water and wind entered. Most were too small for a person to fit through, but they created angles where incoming fire could penetrate. She had already positioned Captain Ashford in the most protected alcove. The narrow entrance created a choke point, good defensive terrain. The voice continued, "We do not wish to kill you. You are valuable. American Special Forces sniper who is woman. This is rare. You have intelligence value. Surrender now. You and your captain both live. We get paid. Everyone wins." Captain Ashford's hand gripped her arm weakly. "Kira, listen to me. I'm dying anyway. Blood loss, internal injuries. I'm not making it out of here. But you can. You're fast. You know this terrain. Use the storm. Disappear like you always do. That's why they call you Ghost." She met his eyes. "Sir, my father didn't raise me to leave people behind, and you didn't train me to quit when things get hard. So with all due respect, I'm staying." "God damn it, Blake. That's not bravery. That's stupidity." "Maybe, but it's my choice." She checked her rifle. "Besides, I'm not done fighting yet." The voice outside grew harder. "We give you 30 seconds to decide. Throw out your weapons and come out with hands visible, or we assault with full force. You will die. Your captain will die. 30 seconds. Choose." Kira keyed her radio. "Alpha, this is Ghost. Hostiles are preparing to assault my position. I am dug in with Captain Ashford in a defensive position. Request immediate update on your ETA." Master Chief Walsh responded instantly. "Ghost, we are approximately 35 minutes from your position. Can you hold that long?" Kira looked at her ammunition count, looked at the single entrance where 6 armed men were preparing to attack, looked at Captain Ashford, who could barely stay conscious. "I'm going to have to, Master Chief." Walsh's voice was tight. "Ghost, if the situation becomes untenable, you are authorized to surrender. We will negotiate for your release. Do not throw your life away." Kira thought about that for a moment. Surrender. Live as a prisoner. Watch Captain Ashford die. Eventually be ransomed or traded or simply disappeared. Or fight. Make them pay for every meter. Give her team time to arrive. Maybe, somehow, survive. "Negative, Alpha. I'm not surrendering. Ghost out." The voice was shouting now. 10 seconds. This is final warning." Kira settled into her firing position. She had clear sight lines on the main approach through the alcove entrance. Limited visibility on potential secondary approaches, but those were more difficult terrain. They'd probably hit her from the main entrance first. Standard tactics. 5 seconds. She controlled her breathing, slowed her heart rate, became still. Time is finished. Assault, assault, assault. The attack came from 3 directions simultaneously. 2 men rushed the main entrance, firing as they moved. One came from the eastern gap in the rocks, moving fast and low. The coordination was perfect. They'd done this before. Kira engaged the main entrance first. 2 quick shots. The lead attacker went down with a bullet through the throat. The second attacker dove for cover, returning fire. She swiveled to the eastern approach. The fighter there was almost through the gap. She fired 3 times. The first shot missed. The second caught him in the shoulder, spinning him. The third hit center mass. He fell. 5 down, 5 to go. But the second man at the main entrance was now laying down suppressive fire while another fighter bounded forward. Classic fire and movement tactics. Kira couldn't engage the bounding fighter without exposing herself to the suppressive fire. She was pinned. The bounding fighter reached the entrance and threw something. Kira recognized it instantly. Flashbang grenade. She squeezed her eyes shut and opened her mouth, trying to mitigate the effects. The grenade detonated with a sound like the end of the world. Even with her eyes closed, the flash was blinding. The concussive wave felt like being hit in the head with a hammer. Her ears rang, her vision swam, her balance was gone. She heard footsteps entering the shelter. Multiple attackers. They were coming. Training took over. Even disoriented, even half-blind, she brought her rifle up and fired toward the sound. One round, two, three. She heard a scream, a body hitting the floor. She'd hit someone. But there were more. They were inside her defensive perimeter now. Close quarters. The range where her sniper rifle became a liability instead of an asset. A figure loomed out of the darkness. Kira swung her rifle like a club, connected with something, heard a grunt. Then someone grabbed her rifle and tried to wrench it away. She let go and transitioned to her sidearm. Drew and fired in one motion. The figure dropped. 6 down, 4 to go. Her hearing was returning. She could hear Captain Ashford shouting something. Couldn't make out the words over the ringing in her ears. Another attacker came from her left. She spun and fired. Missed. Fired again. Hit him in the leg. He went down screaming. 7 down, 3 to go. But her slide locked back. Empty magazine. And before she could reload, someone hit her from behind. The impact drove her to the ground. Her pistol skittered away across the stone floor. A weight landed on her back. Hands grabbed her arms, trying to pin them. She twisted, using her size and flexibility to slip partially free. Drove her elbow back into something soft. Felt the grip loosen. She rolled, created space. Her hand found her knife. The K-bar came free of its sheath with a whisper of steel on Kydex. The attacker came at her again. She saw his face in a lightning flash through the cave openings. Young, maybe 25. Determined. He grabbed for her knife hand. She let him think he had control, then pivoted, using his momentum against him. The blade found his inner thigh. The femoral artery opened. He stumbled back, already dying. 8 down, 2 to go, plus Volkov. Kira scrambled for her pistol, found it, loaded a fresh magazine. Her hands were shaking. Adrenaline and exhaustion and the lingering effects of the flashbang. The shelter had gone quiet. The 2 remaining attackers were reassessing. They'd come in expecting to overwhelm a single defender. Instead, they'd lost 3 more men in less than 60 seconds. Kira moved back to Captain Ashford's position. He was staring at her with wide eyes. How did you? SEAL training, sir, and a lot of anger. She checked his bandages, still seeping blood, but no worse. Stay here, stay quiet. Where are you going? To finish this. She moved toward the shelter entrance, every sense heightened. 2 attackers left, plus Volkov. But where were they? Her radio crackled. Master Chief Walsh's voice. Ghost, we heard sustained gunfire. Report status. She whispered into the mic. Alpha, I've engaged and eliminated multiple hostiles. Estimate 2 to 3 remaining. Still holding position with Captain Ashford. There was a moment of silence. Jesus Christ, Ghost. Hold on, we're coming as fast as we can. Copy, Alpha. Ghost out. A sound from deeper in the shelter. The scrape of boots on stone. Kira moved toward it, pistol up, finger on the trigger. The shelter branched into 3 separate chambers. The sound had come from the middle chamber. She approached carefully, using every piece of cover, checking corners. The chamber was empty. No, not empty. There was blood on the floor, a trail leading deeper. Someone wounded had retreated this way. She followed the blood trail into a narrow passage. The passage opened into a larger chamber. And there, in the dim light filtering through cracks in the rock, she found Viktor Volkov. He was sitting with his back against the wall. Blood soaked his left side. One of her rounds must have hit him during the assault. His weapon lay on the ground 3 meters away, out of his reach. But he was smiling. Impressive, he said in his Russian accent. Very impressive. You kill 8 of my men. You are a small woman, but you fight like entire squad. Kira kept her pistol trained on him. Where are the other 2? They run. When they see you killed Dmitri and Pavel in the dark, they decide this is not worth the money. Smart men. He coughed. They take vehicle, go south. Maybe they escape. Maybe your old colonel finds them. Does not matter now. Kira filed that information away. 2 armed hostiles loose in the area. She'd need to report that. He coughed, and blood appeared on his lips. I am not so smart. I stay. Why? Professional pride. He gestured weakly at his wound. And I think I cannot run far with this. So I wait. I meet the ghost who killed my men. Kira moved closer, keeping her pistol steady. She kicked his weapon farther away. Volkov laughed, then winced in pain. Careful. Professional to the end. I respect this. He studied her face. Your father. He was soldier? Coast Guard rescue swimmer. He died saving people in a hurricane. Volkov nodded slowly. This explains much. You come from warrior family. This is in your blood. He coughed again. I am also from warrior family. Soviet Navy, then Spetsnaz. 30 years of war. And I die in American mountains, shot by girl who weighs 56 kilos. His breathing was becoming labored. Kira could hear fluid in his lungs. The bullet had punctured a lung. He didn't have long. Volkov, why were you here? What was the mission? We were hired. Money from... Does not matter now who hired us. We were to take American military personnel during the storm, use as leverage. Simple job, good money. He laughed and blood bubbled from his mouth. But we did not expect Ghost in the hurricane. His eyes started to lose focus. One more thing, Volkov said quietly. There is, in my pocket, photo of my daughter. Will you make sure she gets it? She is in Moscow. But he didn't finish. His head slumped forward. The breath left his body in a long, rattling sigh. Viktor Volkov was dead. Kira stood there for a moment, looking at the man she'd killed. She'd never met him before today, didn't know his story beyond the intelligence files. But he'd been a professional, a father, a man who'd made choices that led him to this moment. She reached into his pocket and found the photo. A young woman, maybe 20 years old, standing in front of what looked like a Moscow landmark, smiling. Kira pocketed the photo. She'd make sure it got where it needed to go. She keyed her radio. Alpha, this is Ghost. Primary hostile is deceased. I count 8 enemy KIA. 2 fled the area south in vehicle. I'm returning to Captain Ashford's position now. Walsh's voice was filled with something between awe and disbelief. Copy, Ghost. Outstanding work. We are 15 minutes from your position. Hold tight. 15 minutes. They'd been through hell, but they just needed to hold for 15 more minutes. Kira returned to the alcove where she'd left Captain Ashford. He was still conscious, but barely. Did you get him? Yes, sir. It's over. The threat is neutralized. Good. That's good. His eyes focused on her face. Blake, Kira, and I'm going to make sure every single person who doubted you knows exactly what you accomplished. Sir, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because what happened tonight changes things. You didn't just save my life. You proved something that needed proving. That the best operators aren't always the ones who look the part or fit the traditional mold. Sometimes they're the quiet professionals who do the impossible when everyone else has given up. Kira felt something in her chest tighten. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ghost, for not leaving me behind. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the storm. It was weakening. The wind had dropped from Category 4 to Category 2. The worst had passed. Just like everything else, Kira thought, the worst always passes eventually. You just have to survive long enough. 12 minutes later, she heard voices outside the shelter. American voices. SEAL voices. Ghost! Captain Ashford! Call out your position, Kira shouted back. In here. We're in the back chamber. Friendly coming out. She helped Captain Ashford to his feet, supporting most of his weight. Together, they made their way toward the shelter entrance. The first person through the entrance was Master Chief Walsh. His face showed a mix of relief and disbelief when he saw them. Jesus Christ, you're both alive. Yes, Master Chief, mission accomplished. Behind Walsh came Senior Chief Hayes. He stopped dead when he saw the bodies scattered throughout the shelter. 8 dead men, the evidence of a battle that should have been impossible. "Blake," he said quietly, "what the hell happened here?" "I completed my mission, Senior Chief, that's what happened." Colonel Trent entered behind Hayes, his uniform soaked through, moving slower than usual, exhaustion evident. But he was smiling. "I had Overwatch on the eastern approach," Trent said. "Watched most of it through my scope. Couldn't engage effectively. Too far, wrong angles for precision fire. But I made sure those 2 runners didn't come back with friends. Found them half a kilometer south, trying to call for more support on their sat phone. They won't be making any more calls." He looked at Kira with something like awe. "Blake, in my 30 years of combat operations, I've never seen anything like what you just did. Never." Doc Sullivan rushed forward to take over Captain Ashford's care. He quickly assessed the captain's condition and started calling for the medevac helicopter that was now able to fly in the weakened storm conditions. Master Chief Walsh pulled Kira aside while the team worked. "Ghost, I need you to walk me through exactly what happened from the moment you left our shelter to now." Kira gave him a concise after-action report. The tracking, the observation, the decision to engage, the perimeter guard eliminations, the solo assault, the defense, the close quarters battle, Volkov's death. Walsh listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Petty Officer Blake, you disobeyed direct orders." "Yes, Master Chief, I did." "You engaged a numerically superior force against explicit instructions to withdraw." "Yes, Master Chief." "You conducted a solo assault on a fortified position with no backup and no support." "Yes, Master Chief." "And you somehow managed to eliminate 8 enemy combatants, save Captain Ashford's life, and survive with only minor injuries." Kira looked down at herself. Her uniform was torn and bloody. Her hands were scraped raw. Her face was bruised from the close quarters fighting. "Minor might be generous, Master Chief." Walsh shook his head slowly. "Ghost, what you did tonight was either the most brilliant tactical operation I've ever witnessed or the most reckless. I haven't decided which yet. Can it be both, Master Chief?" A ghost of a smile touched his face. "Yeah, I think it can." He put a hand on her shoulder. "You saved his life. He was dead if you hadn't done what you did. So while I should probably write you up for disobeying orders, I think instead I'm going to recommend you for the highest valor decoration this nation can bestow." Senior Chief Hayes approached them. His face was difficult to read. "Blake, I owe you an apology." "Senior Chief, you don't." "Yes, I do. I told you this was suicide. I told you that you would die out here for nothing. I question your abilities, your judgment, your right to be on this team." He took a breath. "I was wrong about everything." Kira met his eyes. "Senior Chief, you had legitimate tactical concerns. The numbers didn't support success. On paper, this mission was impossible. But you did it anyway." "Yes, Senior Chief." "How?" She thought about that. How had she done it? The skills her father taught her, the training the Navy provided, the determination that came from refusing to leave people behind, the anger that fueled her when people told her she wasn't good enough. "I didn't think about the numbers, Senior Chief. I just thought about the mission. Get to Captain Ashford, keep him alive, hold position until help arrived. One step at a time, one shot at a time, one decision at a time." Hayes nodded slowly. "From this moment forward, Blake, you have my complete respect and my complete trust. And if anyone on any team ever questions whether you belong, they'll answer to me." The helicopter arrived 45 minutes later. The storm had weakened enough for safe flight operations. Doc Sullivan had Captain Ashford stabilized and ready for transport. As they loaded the captain onto the helicopter, he grabbed Kira's hand one more time. "Ghost, thank you for everything. Just following your example, sir. You taught us never to leave anyone behind. I taught you tactics and procedures. But what you did tonight, that came from somewhere else. That came from who you are. He smiled weakly. Your father would be proud. The helicopter lifted off into the breaking storm. Kira watched it disappear into the clouds, carrying Captain Ashford to the medical care that would save his life. The walk back to base took 4 hours through the hurricane's aftermath. Trees down across every path, streams swollen to rivers, mud and debris everywhere. But the team moved together, and for the first time, Kira felt like she was truly part of that team. Not the outsider, not the one who had to constantly prove herself, just another SEAL who had done her job. When they finally reached the operations center, word of what had happened had already spread. Personnel stopped what they were doing to watch SEAL Team 5 walk in, to see the young woman who had walked into a Category 4 hurricane and come back with her captain. The debriefings lasted for hours. Intelligence officers wanted every detail about Viktor Volkov and his operation. Command wanted to understand the tactical decisions. Medical personnel needed to examine Kira's injuries. Through it all, Kira remained calm and professional. She answered every question. She walked them through every decision point. She showed them on maps exactly where everything had happened. But when they finally let her go, when she finally made it to her quarters, she sat on her bunk, and for the first time in 12 hours, she let herself feel the weight of what had happened. She had killed 8 men, watched them die, taken lives in close-quarters combat that was brutal and personal. She pulled out her father's rescue swimmer badge and held it in her hands. "Dad," she whispered, "I did it. I brought him home, just like you taught me." She thought she would cry, thought the emotional release would come in tears, but instead she felt something else. A quiet certainty, a deep knowledge that she had done what needed to be done, that she had honored her father's memory in the most meaningful way possible. She had refused to leave someone behind. She had walked into hell and brought them home. And she had proven, beyond any doubt, that she belonged. 3 days later, Captain Nathan Ashford was upgraded from critical to stable condition. The doctors said he would make a full recovery. The compound fracture was healing. The blood loss had been replaced. He would walk again. He would lead again. And his first request when he regained full consciousness was to see Petty Officer First Class Kira Blake. When Kira entered his hospital room, he was sitting up in bed. His leg was in a cast. His shoulder was bandaged, but his eyes were clear and focused. "Ghost, sit down." She sat in the chair beside his bed. "I've spent the last 3 days thinking about what happened in those mountains," he said. "About the choice you made, the risk you took, the battle you fought." He leaned forward slightly. "You could have followed orders. You could have returned to base. You could have let me die. But you chose to be the kind of SEAL who doesn't quit. And that choice saved my life." Ashford smiled. "I spoke with Master Chief Walsh. You're being recommended for the Navy Cross. Do you understand what that represents?" "It's a high honor, sir. It's the second highest decoration for valor in the United States military. It's given for extraordinary heroism in combat. And in your case, it's completely deserved." He extended his hand. "Thank you, Ghost, for bringing me home." She shook his hand. "Anytime, sir." 4 months later, Kira stood in dress uniform at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. The ceremony was formal, official, attended by senior leadership from across naval special warfare. The citation was read aloud. "For extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry in action against an armed enemy while serving with SEAL Team 5 during combat operations in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Petty Officer Blake displayed exceptional courage, tactical proficiency, and unwavering dedication to her teammates under the most adverse conditions imaginable." The Navy Cross was pinned to her uniform by the Secretary of the Navy himself. Her mother stood in the audience, tears streaming down her face, holding her late husband's Coast Guard medal. SEAL Team 5 stood in formation. Every member present to witness one of their own received the nation's recognition. And Senior Chief Hayes, who had once questioned whether she belonged, stood at attention with pride written across his face. Colonel Marcus Trent stood beside Hayes, both men representing two generations of warriors who had witnessed something extraordinary. After the ceremony, after the official photos and the handshakes and the congratulations, Kira found a quiet moment alone. She walked to the beach, still in her dress uniform, and looked out at the Pacific Ocean. She pulled out her father's rescue swimmer badge and held it up to catch the sunlight. "We did it, Dad," she said quietly. "We brought him home." The wind carried her words away. The waves continued their eternal rhythm. And Kira Blake, the ghost who walked through hell, stood there feeling something she hadn't felt in the 14 years since her father died. Peace. She had honored his memory. She had proven herself. She had saved a life when everyone said it was impossible. And she had done it not by being the biggest or the strongest, but by being exactly who she was. A daughter who learned from her father. A student who learned from her teachers. A SEAL who refused to quit. 6 months later, Kira was promoted to Chief Petty Officer at age 27, the youngest female CPO in SEAL history. She was assigned to develop advanced weather operations doctrine for naval special warfare. Her techniques for operating in extreme environmental conditions became required training for all SEAL candidates. Captain Nathan Ashford returned to full duty and personally recommended her for SEAL Team 6 selection. Senior Chief Robert Hayes became her most vocal advocate, mentoring female operators with Kira as his example of what was possible. Colonel Marcus Trent came out of retirement one more time to help Kira develop the new training curriculum, passing his decades of knowledge to the next generation before finally, truly retiring. And the story of the ghost who walked into a Category 4 hurricane and came back with her captain became legend. A story told to new SEAL candidates, a reminder that the impossible is just another challenge waiting to be overcome. But for Kira, the most important thing wasn't the medals or the recognition or the career advancement. It was the knowledge that when it mattered most, when everything was on the line, she had made the right choice. She had gone out when everyone said it was impossible, and she had come back, just like her father taught her.